Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. Once again, I am Dean and I have Devin with me today.
Hey everybody, hopefully everyone had a safe and happy New Year's holiday.
I know I did. Right before we started recording, I was just telling Devin last night. So we're recording this on New Year's Day. So last night I actually went and built six Pokemon decks IRL. So I had a very productive night.
Better than me, I was so tired I didn't even make it to midnight, I'll be honest.
I almost didn't, and once I started doing this little project, I just got so into it. Next thing I knew, it was like 11:30 at night. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to stay up to midnight because I woke up at 4:30, like on New Year's Eve, because my dog just woke me up, and I just stayed up, and I know you and me hung out, doing some other things later that day. So I was fully expected to be in bed by 10.
Yeah, I was up at like 5:30, and I was like, yeah, there's no point. I'm at the age where watching the ball drop and all that stuff, I've done it more than enough times. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to bed and be able to function on my day off.
I don't need to see another performance butchered by a celebrity that had too much to drink, if anyone knows what I mean. Um, but yeah, I like I said, I just did Pokemon stuff, and by the time midnight hit, I'm like, I am heading to bed, and that was it. But we're not here to talk about our New Year's Eve plans or lack of. We are here to talk about Pokemon. And this week's going to be a little different. We are going to talk about a Pokemon trading card game, but not the Pokemon trading card game. So, Devin, what are we going to be talking about today?
So we're going to talk about the newest mobile game or mobile app game that Pokemon released in like November for the world. It's been beta for a little bit, but everyone got their hands on it in November, which is Pokemon TCG Pocket.
Yeah, I know
And
a lot of people temporarily moved to Australia or New Zealand for a couple months so they can play the game. Everyone made it back safely. I know that's a joke. Pokemon does recognize that a lot of people use VPN, so
they didn't stop it. That's the thing. They did not stop it.
no,
And
they did
I
not.
think they wanted the data pieces. They really wanted to test out all the bugs and everything. So they took advantage of that migration and said, you know what? It happened. And honestly, I think this has been a very solid rollout. Like I haven't really noticed very many bugs playing this game compared to like playing Pokemon Go or any other Pokemon game that I have been playing. So kudos to them for kind of just doing what they need to do with it.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can start talking about with this new game. Um, so as you mentioned, there's Pokemon Go that's on the phone, but there's also another we have the Pokemon trading card game live client as well. And I remember when both those games and or applications came out. Granted, Pokemon Go came out 8 years ago at this point, and it
Yeah,
was a
7 8 years ago.
fairly new type of app for the phone, and there was a bunch of bugs and glitches. I couldn't even play the game for the first 2 days.
Well, the biggest thing is they didn't realize Niantic did not understand the demand that the Pokemon IP gives. So their servers couldn't handle all the people just trying to log in. Like you couldn't even log in because there was so much demand on the server. It had nothing to do with gameplay. It was too many people were trying to play the game at once, and it just was not ready for that.
Yeah, and about like a week or so, it was fine. I remember at that point I'm walking around my neighborhood and I expect some glitches here and there. And remember, 8 years ago, technology isn't as it was right now. So I think there was a lot more grace with it. And then compared to the live client, I think that's something we can talk about is let's compare and contrast Pokemon Train Card Game Live to the Pokemon Train Card Game Pocket, because I know one of the big things is with the Pocket, as you mentioned, it was very smooth. It came out, there wasn't many issues, if any, versus live. We're still talking about different bugs that come up.
Yeah, and I think before we go into like the troubleshooting and that client comparison and contrast, I really want to talk about. I think it's important to understand the difference between the two different games.
Yeah.
Because if you understand the differences in the games, you'll understand why there's a difference in maybe client management. So, first off, Pokemon TCG Pocket is not Pokemon TCG.
No, not at all. I would say it's closer to like maybe baby's first Pokemon trading card game per se. Is very, I wouldn't say stripped down, but a lot of the mechanics are the same. It's just done in a different version.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the key differences. So in Pokemon TCG Pocket, first off, the cards are different. There's a completely different card pool.
Yes.
And when we talk about decks and the meta in a little bit, you'll see some common themes, yes, but there is a completely different card pool. Even cards with the same name don't even do the same thing.
Yeah. So one instance is there is a professor's research in both games, but the big difference is in the trading card game, the actual game that you and me play on a regular basis, is discard your hand, draw 7, versus in the pocket version, all you're doing is just drawing 2 cards.
Yeah, it's Pot of Greed. It's the Yu-Gi-Oh equivalent of Pot of Greed. It's just a +2.
Yeah.
Another common card is Poké Ball, where in TCG, Pokeball is flip a coins of heads, search for a basic Pokemon. In this game, it automatically just randomly pulls a basic Pokemon out of your deck. Like it's a guaranteed basic. You just don't know what basic it's going to be.
Yeah. So I know with a lot of when you build decks, you have to keep that in mind because Pokeball is a staple in almost every single deck. So you need to get those cards. You need to get your board set up.
Oh yeah, like every deck I've ever made was 2 Pokeball, 2 research, like the first 4 cards I make when I'm making my decks, and it's because it's consistency. Like, want to do 1 or 2 Pokeballs turn 1. You want to have that research turn 1, and you want to basically grow your hand and get cards out of your deck. I think deck thinning is more important in Pocket than it is in regular TCG.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't touch on yet is another difference between the two games is that with the trading card game, you play with a 60 card deck with up to 4 of any of the same card except for basic energy versus Pocket, it's a 20 card deck. You only play 2 of whatever card and you have no energy in your deck at all.
Yeah, there is no energy card. There's an energy reservoir, energy zone, and that can be manipulated. So, the energy zone, if you make a deck, defaults to the type of energy that the Pokemon is. Now, a lot of decks right now are monotype. So if you're making a water deck, you're only ever going to get water energy in your energy zone. But if you're playing cards like Drudigan, which is a dragon types still are multi-type attackers in this game. They did keep that. You have to go into your settings and say, I want water and fire as part of my energy. So there is some creativity when it comes to deck creation. But the energy zone is right now, the game is still in its infancy, it's still in its baby stages, like you said. So there's a lot of just monotypes. Everything is monotype. And that's okay. To be 100% honest, that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like it helps with the weakness triangles better. Oh, and that's another thing too. So weakness doesn't hit. It's not double damage. It's what only +20.
It's +20. So it's the old weakness mechanic from way back in the day.
Yeah, and I like that a little better because with the few games that I have played, it feels more balanced. You're not automatically losing if you come up against a deck like, oh man, I am playing my what is it? I'm playing a fighting deck and I'm weak to grass, and all of a sudden I'm hitting a Celebi EX. I'm done for. I'm just going to scoop up. Actually, it makes it to where you have a chance. Yes, it is harder, but you can still play the game and have a good game from it.
Yeah. And the other piece to this, I think, is the biggest difference is the HBs. Like, the HP of all these Pokemon, including these big EXs, like, I think the highest HP card is 180, and that's a Stage 2 EX, like Blastoise and Charizard.
And I know they did that on purpose, just because it's the starter Pokemon, original 151. They always want to push those, and you kind of see that in any game. The cards that they want you to use more, they kind of make them a little better. But yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the HP difference isn't drastic, because even a regular non EX stage 2 is like what, 120, 130. It's only a difference of.
Yeah, no more than that, except for like Mewtwo. I think Mewtwo EX is 150.
So comparing like a strong stage 2 versus like a Mewtwo EX, which again they did that on purpose, is only a difference of 10 HP, and
Mm-hmm.
their attacks are fairly strong too. So I feel like it is more balanced for now. Obviously, we only have what, 1.5 sets, because the new set that's out is like technically a mini set.
Yeah, they did a mini expansion in between the two main sets.
So there's the differences between the two games. So how is playing the Pocket? How is that experience compared to playing either the trading card game IRL, or even playing the trading card game on the live client? Like, let's go into that aspect
Yeah,
of the two games.
I think because it's a smaller deck, I think they're quicker games, so they don't. There's not really any grindiness to it. Now, I've been a part of really grindy games, and it was. I think when you and I are hanging out yesterday, we were on a bus going from place to place, and on a 15-minute bus ride, I had a game that lasted the entire bus ride, and I'm like, well, that's because usually in 15 minutes I can do 3 to 4 games very
Yeah.
easily with
Mm-hmm.
Pocket. And I had a 15-minute match. I'm like, wow, this. And you could tell we both knew how the deck we were playing very well, and we knew our matchups, we knew our lines, and that stuff. When you get to the higher level, that's where it can get a little grindy. But it's also, I think those type of matches are more rewarding sometimes. Now, if you run into a string of them, it can get very, very tiring. But I would say in general, matches are no more than 3 to 5 minutes. They're very quick. You just have to get 3 prize points, not prize cards, which is amazing. I think it's a very good way to introduce players to TCG, and they make it very known this is not the actual game. They want to differentiate itself from TCG with its tutorial, and I think they do a really good job in the tutorial for that as well.
Yeah. From the games that I played, I agree with you. The games are fairly quick, unless you're one playing a deck that is intentionally slow, which there's not a lot of those right now, or you just go against someone that knows how to counteract your line of play, and you can do the same thing, and then yeah, you can have a little bit more of a grindier game. But even at that point, that's 10 minutes maybe. It's not like playing the trading card game, where sometimes I've played a single game, granted casually, for 45 minutes, because we were both just grinding it out and taking our time doing what we need to do.
Oh yeah, and you can't do that, and I think you can't do that with Pocket because of the in-game timer, which is amazing. I've never come close to time. I know there's some people who troll on the client that purposely take all like 30 seconds per decision and try to get their opponents just to quit on them for free wins. Because the way that incentivizes winning, I hate to say it, is that when you're doing matches, especially online, it's 10 experience points per win. Like doing the PvP is the best way to level up your account right now. And when you level up, you get packs, you get hourglasses, you get resources to open up more cards. So there is that give and take as well.
And I think this is a good transition. We didn't talk about the resources with Pocket compared to playing on live. So why don't you kind of give a brief explanation of what what we really need to play the game, especially with one thing we forgot to mention. This is a free to play game. You don't have to spend any money. Granted, you can spend money, but I know I haven't put any money towards this game, and a lot of people haven't, just because it's a digital client. You're not really actually getting anything other than your experience. So let's talk about the different resources with this game. So like, how do you get packs? What are the different monetary or the different way to
The
purchase
currencies.
the
Yeah,
currencies in the game? So let's talk about that.
yeah, absolutely. So first, let's go into the basics of the game. So TCG Pocket is, like you said, it isn't really designed to be a PvP battling client. Its whole purpose actually is to open cards. So every day you get two free packs. So per every 24 hours, you'll get two free packs. And right now, you get to pick between two sets. You get to pick between the original set, Genetic Apex, which has three different packs within that set. It has a Mewtwo, a Pikachu, and a Charizard set within that main set. So
Which
in that
which
main
I
set is
didn't
like,
know about that. I thought they were all the same cards.
yeah, so each different pack art has different types of cards within that set. And then that whole set is like 260 cards total. And then in the beginning of December, they dropped a mini expansion called Mythical Island, and that only has one pack in it. It's Mew, and it's a 68 card set before you count secret rares and alt rares. So every single day, for free, you can open two packs. And then on top of that, you have a daily mission that will reward you what's called hourglasses when you complete three of them. So the daily missions are very easy. It is log in. Well, that's one of your three right there, is just logging in for the day. The next one is you can either do a battle. They do incentivize doing battle. Now, when they say do a battle, they don't say do a battle online. There's a solo play that you could do and just play against the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that, that counts as a check mark there. Open up the pack. That is one. You can, and that it rewards you for both your daily packs. And then another one is Wonder Pick. We'll go into Wonder Pick in a second. So you have 5 different ways to get your 3 missions done a day to get 4 free hourglasses per day.
Yeah,
And the hourglasses, go ahead.
I was gonna say yeah. That's the first thing I do every single morning. I'll open up my packs and I get the 4 hourglasses because I tend to forget about this game. And I'm like, oh, I got my 2 packs because it's open 1 pack, open 2 packs. Okay, there you got 2 of them done, and then you're logging in 3. Boom, you're already done. And say for if I actually did remember to open up the game in the middle of the day, and I only have 1 pack to open, then just do a wonder pick, and we'll go into that. But sometimes there's free wonder picks too. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll
They
do
do.
that first. And boom, I have my 4 hourglasses within 2 minutes of opening the game. Not even.
Yep. So we'll go into Wonder Pick. Says that again, that's not really a currency, but it's a resource. So Wonder Pick is a very interesting mechanic they introduced in this game, where depending on if you have friends on your friend list, you can have friends. There's a social component to this, or just random people the game wants to assign you. You could actually try to pick one of the 5 cards that they opened in a pack they just opened. So, but there is a cost. There's a little energy counter that does every like 12 hours, and you can have up to 5 of them at a time. But here's the key difference: the energy for the pack. So, say you want your friend pulls a really good pack, right? That's going to cost you more energy than maybe a pack full of common and uncommon. So, there is a little bit of resource management when it comes to that, because you're not always going to have all 5 of your energy to waste. On top of that, Pokemon has done a really good job with this game in terms of giving us a lot of events recently
Mm-hmm.
where we can just get free Wonder Picks. Where you do a Wonder Pick and it's free, there's no energy cost to it, and there's a chance of you getting a decent card or getting a Hourglass or a Wonder Glass and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of different things you can get for free in this game and not actually utilize any resources.
yeah. Because I remember one of the ones they just did was for lightning cards, and I did it. It was free, and I got the Zapdos EX.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I already had 2 of those, but it didn't cost me opening up the pack. It's something that the game provided already, and all I had to do is just do a free wonder pick, and I got a very rare card from it. So I like how they do that. Um, they make it fun and very. The resources aren't as bad compared to other free-to-play games I've played on the computer or anything like that.
Yeah, so we have the Wonder Pick energies. So we've been talking about hourglasses, and then I just mentioned a Wonder Glass. The Wonder Glass is a resource. I haven't used one yet because I really don't care as much. But you could always, in those Wonder Picks, if you had enough Wonder Glasses, you could always be able to wind back the clock. And if there's an expired pick that you really wanted but never got a chance to open, and it's in your queue, you could reopen it at the cost of a Wonder Glass and Wonder Pick energy. So if like, oh, my friend pulled a Selby EX and I didn't get a chance to log in time to Wonder Pick that pack, if it's in your expired column, you could use a Wonder Glass to reopen that and then try to Wonder Pick that pack. So the game gives you plenty of those. I really only used one so far in a little over 2 months of playing. So that's another resource. We mentioned hourglasses several times already, but never really went into that currency. So hourglasses allow you to open more packs. So we mentioned that 12-hour timer per pack, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to wait the 12 hours, you can use up to so many hourglasses to basically fill your timer up and be like, oh, the timer magically is filled with hourglasses. Here's time to pick your pack. And then you can do that in increments of 1 or increments of 10. That's another cool part, is you can open up 10 packs at once if you have enough resources.
And not just that, but one thing I did early on before I really knew about how to take advantage of the different resources. Say I'm impatient, I want to open up another pack, and I'm like, oh, I have 4 hours left. Well, you can use 4 hourglasses, because each hourglass is 1 hour, and then you can open up a new pack, or you can do, oh, I have 7 hours left, you do 7 hourglasses. So it does it per hour as well. And especially with early on with the original genetic Apex, as we mentioned, it's 260 cards, and I was trying to build a deck just so I can play against other players. And doing the free to play route, it's a little more difficult because you're relying on opening those packs. So I was wasting my hourglasses, just like I'm just hoping to get something.
And I don't think doing something like that, especially for newer players, that is not a waste. If you are using those resources to build up that collection, that is not a waste of money. I think it's one of those, you have to do something. You just can't go and be like, all right, I'm open 2 packs a day and I'm going to go play in this tournament. If you want to do the PvP, if you want to do the battle component of this, you're going to have to crack packs, just like in real life.
Yeah, I remember at Christmas time, we were talking about this, and you looked at my account, and you were like, you have a lot of cards. I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of cards, but I have no competitive cards. And then I had to, figure out, then that's when you told me, oh, yeah, you can craft. I'm like, you can craft? What? So there's a lot of this game that I'm still learning about. I know you put a lot of time into it. I haven't put as much time. I have built some competitive decks and I have played online. But there's a collector side of this game, and then there's a competitive side of this game, and sometimes they don't necessarily line up, and that's fine. They serve 2 different purposes for the Pokemon community.
Yeah. So another thing that Pocket does really, really well are these small little week-long events. As of today, like this morning, at January 1st, they started a new one that's Blastoise themed. So it gives you they give you a week, and there's a solo battle component to it where you face computer decks. Different difficulties give you different rewards, and if you beat them, you get a promo pack. And a promo pack is a 1-card pack that has a promo stamp card, and it's part of the collection piece. The only way to get these packs is to beat the computer in this solo format. And depending on how much you want to put into it, there's miniature challenges with each battle. Like the beginner step for this Blastoise battle is put 3 basic Pokemon into play, get 4 hourglasses. Okay, cool, done. Knock out this water deck with a lightning attacker, and then you get 4 hourglasses for that. All right, and then so you do your 1 batch, and you can get a whole bunch of stuff. It's like, wow, this is how the game wants to reward you, and it incrementally makes things more difficult. But with the difficulty, they give you more stuff.
Yeah, and
So
one cool thing I like about doing those computer battles is that they give you rental decks too. So even in the beginning, you're not struggling with playing something that's all common and not really that powerful. They'll give you a pretty decent deck to play, and you can use that for up to what I believe 10 times per rental deck.
you can do 10 times before they take it away from you, which is perfectly fine because it helps you accomplish other stuff too. So again, with the free-to-play piece, you have to be very creative and very crafty with how you utilize the resources given to you before you basically have a robust collection. So that way you play good decks. On Christmas, oh, was it Christmas Eve? I went through and I did all the solo challenges, and I didn't have decks for all the solo challenges. Like it's like, oh, beat this electric deck with water Pokemon. I didn't have a water deck, so I had to make a water deck and kind of figure out what cards will be a good combination to face this electric deck. And like, all I had to do was win once, and then I could go to something else. Like when you get a bigger collection, you can start playing around with different deck ideas, and you have a little more fun because it's one of those. It's a snowball effect when it comes to resources. You have to do stuff to get more, to get more, to get better, to get better, to get better, and it just snowballs from there. Where like right now, I have 400 shop tickets because I did all those solo challenges, and I'm waiting for the next expansion that will come out in the later part of January. So I'm getting all these shop tickets to transform into Wonder Glasses, so I can open like 30 packs on like the first day of the new set. Like that's my goal.
Yeah. So as we kind of talked about the battling aspect of this game and moving away from the collection side, just like the Pokemon trading card game, there is a meta. And one thing I'm really shocked, surprised, and really glad about about this game is how big the online tournaments are compared to like the online tournaments we see for the trading card game. I remember seeing one of the tournaments is like 1,000 people.
Oh, there was a 1,900 person tournament over New Year's.
Yeah, and to me, I'm like, what? Like that's almost as big as a regional.
Yeah, but I think it's easier for people to play Pocket than it is to play a tournament on live because Pocket, you're on your phone, you can be at your couch, you can be anywhere. When it comes to live, you have to have a tablet or better, so a tablet, laptop, or computer, and you have to sit down and you have to dedicate to it. Where live, you do wherever you want in the world. So I think that's part of it. Is just the accessibility of it being a mobile app.
Yeah, and you'll see people from other games come in and play on Pocket, and you'll see them streaming and doing the competitive stuff. And I think it's really cool to see more people come into the Pokemon community, even through a game like this. So let's just start talking about the meta. I know you play the game a lot. I've looked on the Play Limitless page, and I'll see what's there. So what are some of the big decks out there that if someone wants to get into the competitive scene, they should either start crafting or start pulling the cards to create these decks?
Yeah, so Pocket makes it very simple. If it is on a pack, it's probably a good card. So we're talking about Mewtwo EX. We're talking about Celebi EX. We're talking about Charizard EX. We're talking about Pikachu EX. All four of those are pack logos. Each one of them are higher rare cards, so it isn't guaranteed to happen, but they are the mascots of their individual sets, and they're good cards. So let's go into like each one of their kind of deck archetypes a little bit and kind of talk about how each one of them functions. So first, I'm going to go over Mewtwo EX. So Mewtwo EX is paired with Gardevoir, and now with Mythical Island coming out, it does splash in a Mew EX that came in with the set as well. So Mewtwo EX is a 150 HP EX basic Pokemon. And what it does is for a Psychic and Colorless Energy, it does 50 damage straight up. So turn 2, you can start peppering 50 damage. We talked about how low the HPs are of everything else relatively. So the fact that you're doing 50 damage turn 2, it can put a lot of pressure on your opponent. It also has another attack, Side Drive, for 150, and in order to use that attack, you have to discard 2 Psychic Energy to that Pokemon. Side Drive is a double Psychic, double Colors attack cost. So 150 is pretty much, it can KO 99% of the cards.
Yeah.
The only thing it really can't KO one shot is a Stage 2 EX, and then some Stage 1 EXs. So there's that. So how do you streamline these Mewtwo EXs to be able to Side Strike a lot? Well, it's with the Ralton Gardevoir line. So Gardevoir is a Stage 2 Psychic Pokemon that has the ability Psy Shadow. So once your turn, you can take a Psychic Energy from your Energy Zone and attach it to your Psychic Pokemon in the active spot. So the whole concept of that deck is you start off with a Mew or Mewtwo in the active, you have a Ralts on your bench turn 0, and you basically try to evolve up a Gardevoir, slowly start powering up your EX attacker, and then by turn 2, turn 3, you're just streamlining very high energy cost attacks. So if the Mewtwo EX, we're talking about that side strike attack. With Mew EX has an attack called Geno Hacking, where you basically, for 3 colors energy, you just copy one of the attacks of your opponent's active Pokemon and not have any of the downside, unless the downside is Psychic Energy. So in that deck, you're basically trying to streamline attacks fairly quickly, and that deck can do it. Like turn 3, I've had a Gardevoir up and running. I've been able to Side Drive turn 3 very easily.
And it's
so that's that archetype.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, like, you're talking about this Psychic deck with the Gardevoir. It reminds me of the Gardevoir deck that is currently out in the trading card game with Gardevoir EX, being able to accelerate your energy and get something really going by turn 2, turn 3. So I like how Pocket kind of takes these concepts that we're already used to and makes it and kind of adjusts it to their format and make another archetype off of a common... really some common cards that we see now, like Mew EX. It's really the same card. Gardevoir, it's almost the same card, just not an EX version, and it's really cool to see how they share.
Yeah. Another really good example of that is actually Pikachu EX. So Pikachu EX has the attack Circle Circuit. If those who've been playing TCG for a while, that sounds familiar, it's because Circle Circuit Raichu was a thing, and it was a very top-level deck for a very long time in the X and Y meta. So Pikachu X is a basic Lightning-type 120 HP Pokemon. Circle Circuit is for 2 Lightning Energy, and Circle Circuit does 30 times the amount of damage for each of your bench Pokemon. And it has to be bench Lightning Pokemon. Yeah, it's Lightning bench, but again, a lot of these decks are Mono-type already, so that doesn't really matter. So you're doing 90 turn 2 very quickly with this deck, because the whole idea of the EX archetype, this Pikachu EX archetype, is fill your bench. Just fill your bench with a whole bunch of EX or Lightning Pokemon and go. And it has a partner in Zapdos EX, which is a 130 HP basic EX Pokemon that has a energy for a single Lightning for 20. So that can cause a lot of pressure. And then while you're doing that, you're setting up its other attack for 3 Lightning, Thundering Hurricane, flip 4 coins and does 50 for each head. Like, that's 200 potentially on the coin flips. And then you can just... right now, the archetype really struggles on, does it want to have Dedenne, which is a Pokemon that we got in Mythical Island that just has a single attack. Thundershock, 10, flip a head, coins of heads, your opponent's paralyzed. People have been doing Strika. So that is a 90 HP stage 1 Pokemon that has the attack Thunder Spear for 1 Lightning. This does 30 to one of your opponent's Pokemon in play, so you kind of spread around and clean up any KOs. There's a lot of different flexibility with the Pikachu EX archetype, but really what the heart of it is you have 2 Pikachu EXs and 2 Zapdos EXs, and then whatever partner you want from it. And it does a lot of pressure really quickly because you're up and running turn 2.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I pulled up one of the tournaments, and you're like, yeah, some decks play the Dedenne, some decks play the Zebstrika, some play the Zapdos. I found a deck that played all 3. So...
Yeah. Sometimes you just need your bench filled. It doesn't matter who's filling the bench.
Yeah, and I remember when this game came out, the Pikachu Lightning deck was like one of the top tier decks, and it was like that for a while until just recently, and now we're kind of seeing a more diverse meta, kind of like what we're used to with the TCG. So we've talked about a psychic deck, we've talked about a lightning deck. What other decks are out there?
Yeah, so another top contender deck is Celebi EX, so we're going to go grass now. And Celebi EX is a basic EX grass type, 130 HP, that has the attack Powerful Bloom. This attack cost is grass colorless, but it is 50 times, and then you flip a coin for every energy attached to this Pokemon. It does 50 times for every heads. But the reason why this deck functions is because of the superior that came from this set. So basically, this whole deck is full of cards that came from the Mythical Island set. And the superior is a stage 2 grass Pokemon that's 110 HP, but it has this ability, Jungle Totem. For each grass energy attached to your grass Pokemon, it provides 2 energy instead of 1. This ability does not stack, so you only can have one of these abilities in play.
Sounds familiar to me.
Oh, it is absolutely familiar. It is, Venusaur from a couple sets ago? Or a couple formats ago?
Yeah, and it's literally the same ability, Jungle Totem. Like, word for word, other than it doesn't stack.
Yeah, so, with Celebi EX, you can have 2 grass energy attached to it, and now you're flipping 4 coins instead of 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very, very low to the ground. The hardest part of this deck is really getting the superior set up, but you're running... So, this is the deck list. So, you have 2 Snivy, 2 Servine, and 2 superior. 2 Execute, 2 Executor EXs. Executor EX is a really easy Pokemon to put in this because its attack is only with single grass energy anyway. So you can do that, 40 damage, flip a coins of heads, that's 40 more. You can have that up front while you're trying to set up a Celebi, and then you're running 2 Celebi. Very streamlined, very efficient. You're running 2 researches, 2 Pokeballs, an X speed for retreat, a Sabrina for gusting, and then grass typically runs Erica. Erica is a supporter in this game that heals 50 damage from grass Pokemon. So grass decks are typically known as tankier decks. Mm-hmm. But the Celebi allows this tank to be matched with a lot of firepower. So that's why this archetype works as well as it does.
Yeah, it seems like it's very streamlined. As long as you get your Pokemon in play, you should be all set. I know a lot of decks are playing a card called Leaf, where it decrease the retreat cost by 2, which is a big deal because most Pokemon have retreat costs of 1 or 2 in this game. It's rare to see something greater than that, and if it is, it's usually a Pokemon you expect to have a greater retreat cost.
It's historically slower Pokemon, yeah.
So, yeah, this seems like if grass is your favorite type, this is a great deck that you want to build. So we've talked about lightning, psychic, grass. Is there a fire deck that's pretty decent?
Yeah, there is. Fire has 2 main archetypes. I'll go with the original one, which is Charizard Moltres EX. Charizard Moltres, the whole idea of the deck, I'm trying to get the full list and read the cards. Here it is. So what you want to do is lead with Moltres EX. Moltres EX is a basic fire Pokemon for 140 HP with the attack Infernal Dance. So you flip 3 coins. This attack is only for a single fire energy, so you can do this turn 1. Take an amount of fire energy from your energy zone equal to the amount of heads you flip and attach it to your bench fire Pokemon any way you want. So Infernal Dance, you're flipping 3 coins. For every head, you attach a fire energy to one of your bench Pokemon. So, basically the whole point of this Moltres EX is you're doing this 2 to 3 times as you set up your bench. When you're setting up your bench for your Charizard EX, so Charizard EX, like we said, is a Stage 2 Fire Pokemon, 180 HP, that has 2 attacks. It has Slash for 60, which is a Fire Double Colorless. Cool, basic, easy attack. But it has this other attack, Crimson Storm. It is double Fire, double Colorless attack cost. But in order to do this attack, you have to discard 2 fire energy from it. And it does 200 damage. 200 damage KOs everything. But the drawback is you have to discard 2 fire energy. So what you really want to do with this deck is you do want to load up more energy on your Charizard so you can streamline this attack 2 times, and then you pretty much end the game on the second attack.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of different fire archetypes. There's this Moltres paired with an Arcanine EX that does a lot of damage, but is recoil, which is Arcanine's kind of signature in TCG. It always has a lot of recoil-based attacks. There's a fire deck that's a budget fire deck. I'm playing it a lot, where you're playing a 2/2 line of Ninetales and a 2/2 line of Rapidash with Blaine. Blaine is a supporter that does extra damage for your Ninetales, your Magmar, and your Rapidash in play. So the whole deck is uncommon and common. Like it has no EX cards in it. So basically, you're forcing your opponent to KO you 3 different times, and every single attacker attacks for 2 energy or less.
So that's really cool to hear that there's a budget-friendly deck that's competitive too. Because up to now, it seems like you need to pull the EXs to really have a chance, and now we're like, oh, if you want to just play a deck that's common and uncommon and actually do well at a tournament, like this fire deck is a decent option for those who are free to play.
Absolutely. There's another up-and-coming deck. I'm trying to find the list. It's Golem Druddigan.
And I think that won a tournament recently too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It did. It just won like a 1,500-plus person tournament. And the whole point of the deck, it's counter meta. So this is where it comes to countering certain decks works to your advantage. So Druddigan is a card. Basically, this whole deck comes from the new set Mythical Island. So Druddigan is a dragon type card, 100 HP basic dragon Pokemon. You do not attack with this card. Its ability Rough Skin. If this Pokemon's in the active spot and is damaged by an attack, you do 20 damage to your opponent's attacking Pokemon. So it can eat 2 hits, sometimes 3 hits, because we talked about how a lot of the attacks don't do a lot of damage because the HP is so low. So with it having 100 HP and having this Rough Skin ability, it puts your opponent's Pokemon in a range for Golem to get powered up first off, because Golem is a 168 HP Stage 2 fighting Pokemon. And it has the attack Guard Press. So for 3 fighting, 1 color's energy, so 4 total energy, it does 120. But it also takes 30 less damage from an attack next turn. So you basically put your Druddigan in play. You can put both your Druddigan, have it that do damage, have your opponent have to make decisions. Do I attack this Druddigan and take damage? And they take too many of them, they're going to KO their attacker. And then you make them go through 2 of those while you set up a Golem or 2. And then you're hitting the Golems, hitting everything, and it hits Pikachu for weakness. So that you're basically turning your 1 prize trade-offs into potentially 2 prize counters. And then it runs a Hitmonlee that if a Pokemon, let's say, are receiving that damage from the Druddigan, the Hitmonlee does 30 damage to any Pokemon on your opponent's side. So you can do cleanup KOs with the Hitmonlee as well.
Yeah, and I know some lists play the Marshadow too, which has the Revenge attack for a fighting colorless 40 plus. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage, it does 60 more damage. So you're doing 100 to your active, and if, like you said, if they're already softened up with the Druddigan, 100 damage is not hard to do. Like that can KO even just after 1 attack from a Druddigan.
Yeah. And then it runs Brock because it's a Golem-based build. Brock is a supporter that only works with Golem and Onyx, where you put an energy from your energy zone onto a Golem or an Onyx. So there is energy acceleration for Golem there, so it doesn't take 4 full turns. You can probably get it done in 2 to 3 turns.
Yeah.
And then the last major archetype I want to talk about is Water. And I'm using Water as an overall general entity here, because there's so many different water pairings out in the meta right now. Generally, you're seeing Gyarados EX, Articuno EX, Starmie EX, and Greninja. Those are the 4 major water cards that you're generally seeing. I'll go over each of the cards real quick.
But what makes water so powerful? If we have 4 different cards, why are we seeing water pop up? Is there a certain supporter that's making it good?
Yes. Well, good and bad. Let's put it this way. It is a double-edged sword supporter, and it's Misty. So Misty is a supporter that says, flip a coin. And keep on flipping until you flip tails. So every head you get to attach a water energy to a water Pokemon. The thing is, you have to declare what Pokemon it is before you flip coins.
Yeah, I saw
So
that.
it's bonkers. The best I've ever had a Misty flip for me is 3. I've seen videos on like different social media sites where they clip it and it's like 7 heads. Well, that's more than enough energy. You don't need 7. Really, when you play a Misty, you're wanting 1. You want the turn skip. Because 1 energy is giving you 1 more energy. You're getting ahead of the curve by 1 turn.
And the cool thing with Pocket is that we didn't say this in the beginning, but you can play a supporter going first on your first turn. So if you're going against someone that has low HP, or say you're going against fire because of weakness, and you have a water Pokemon on the active, you can play Misty and hit 1 or 2 heads, power up your attacker, and then donk. That is totally possible.
The one trade-off with going first in Pocket is you cannot do an energy from your energy zone, which is why these energy accelerating cards are so important in this meta. So if you're going first, a lot of decks see that as a negative thing because they're going to be 1 energy behind their opponent the entire time. That's the big thing.
Yeah, and that's the biggest difference between Pocket and TCGs. Like in TCG, we can attach energy and not fall behind on the energy trade at least. But in this game, it's the opposite. You can play supporters, you can do everything else but attach energy.
Yeah. So there's a lot of energy card or a lot of water cards to take advantage of Misty. It's the biggest meme in the format is you see a Misty, and if you see someone play it against you, you're hoping for the tails, and if you're playing it, you're hoping for at least 1 heads.
Yeah,
and it's really a feast or famine card, and the decks are definitely feast or famine because of it. But yeah, that's generally all the major kind of typings. Most of the typings right now have a card that can, or an archetype that you can take advantage of it. Unfortunately, right now, as you mentioned, a lot of the decks are with those hyper rare, ultra rare cards that are EX focused. But there are some budget card decks that can definitely be played and do well for just those players that have got a lot of good common and uncommons, and they just want to play on the ladders.
Yeah, and I think this is a good transition to go into the rogue deck of the week. We have created a deck, like you said, it's more or less not budget, but you're not really seeing it on the tournaments on a lot of the times, but it does do well occasionally. And to no surprise, it is based on the poison mechanic for us, which if you've been listening to us, it's a theme. So,
and at this point, like when we first picked this deck about 2 weeks ago, because I've been playing it for almost 3 weeks now, it was considered a budget counter to Mewtwo. It was one of the few dark decks that had a really good consistency draw and could do really good against the Mewtwo meta. Since then, we've got Mythical Island, so the meta shifted a little bit. So it got a little worse because it doesn't do a lot of damage to non-psychic decks. It's a lot of a grindier, long-term setup kind of deck. So this deck we're talking about is Scolipede Weezing. So Scolipede Weezing is a deck that utilizes poison and its type of it being a darkness deck to its advantage. So let's look into some of the cards, and then we'll talk about how the general gameplay is. So in the deck, or at least the deck list that I run, now there's some variants here, so we're going to go with the deck list that I run. It only has 4 basic Pokemon. It has 2 Venipede, 2 Koffing. So in the deck, what you want to do, this deck actually does not hate going first.
Oh no, not at all, because it's a setup deck for sure.
It's a setup deck, so you can go first or you can go second. So in this deck, I'm gonna read out the deck list real quick for everyone. and obviously it's going to be in the show notes. So it's a 2/2/2 line of Venipede from Mythical Island. The list I run is a 2/2 line of Weezing and Koffing, but it's one from each set. So it's one Koffing from Genetic Apex, one Koffing from Mythical Island, one Weezing from Genetic Apex, one Weezing from Mythical Island. And that is the entire Pokemon line.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of items, I play 2 Professor Research, 2 X Speed, a Potion. So I have 2 XP, 2 Pokeball, 2 Research, 1 Potion, 2 Koga, and 1 Leaf. So the whole concept of this deck is that you want to lead at least... You want to try to get 2 to 3 Pokemon in play turn 1.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So the best start I've had is I start with the Koffing from Mythical Island. It has the attack division, so I can just put the other Koffing in the play. I'm putting another Venipede in the play, and in hand I have a Whirlipede or a Weezing of some degree. So, and then from there, you just start building up your attackers, because all the attackers in this deck attack for either 1 or 2 energy. So you can set up multiple attackers very easily with this deck.
Yeah, and I like playing this type of deck too, because in the version I had, a tech card that you could do instead is the Salandit from Mythical Island, which it's a fire. So you can have the fire go against for fire weakness, so that's good against like Celebi. And it attacks for 1 colorless energy, so you still just do the dark energy. And it plays off the poison mechanic as well. And we haven't gotten into that yet, but the Weezing has, when you evolve up to the Weezing from Genetic Apex, it has the ability Gas Leak, which says once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon poison. So you do that, and then you try to find a way to get the Weezing out of the active, and ideally attack with the Scolipede. So once you evolve up to the Scolipede, it has a Venoshock attack for dark and colorless, 70 plus. If your opponent's active Pokemon is poison, it does 50 more damage. So you're doing 120, and then you get the poison tick. So 130 essentially for your turn. And if they are poison beforehand, that's knocking out a lot of the Pokemon in the format right now.
Yeah, so the poison damage plus the attack KOs Celebi in 1 shot. It KOs Mewtwo EX as a weakness. With and again, the poison tick's really what does the knockout, but that's fine. You put Articuno and Moltres into very dangerous situations. You are KOing Pikachu. You're KOing the Druddigon. So it's one of those situations where it does math really, really well. And the most common way I've been able to get a Weezing out of the active is through the supporter card Koga.
Oh yeah, I love this card so much in this deck.
So Koga puts a Muck or Weezing, in this case for Weezing for us, in the X spot into your hand. So you pull up the Weezing and the Koffing in your hand. So that Weezing has 10 HP left. You plus Koga, you get all that in your hand, and all that damage is off.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way of preventing KOs as well.
Oh yeah, because 110 HP is pretty decent, so you can probably tank a couple hits, or at least 1 hit. Koga, and then ideally you have another Koffing in play and just evolve up, and you kind of start that loop of trying to get your poison every single turn.
Pretty much, and that's how the deck runs optimally. The other piece that I like is the fact that because the deck list I run has 2 different Weezings. The other Weezing has an attack for 2 darkness energy. It says it's Smokescreen, so you do 50 damage, but your opponent has to flip a coin in order to attack next turn. And if it flips tails, it loses its attack. So there's situations where you kind of put your opponent into a situation where if they want to attack you, they either have to flip a coin in order to attack you, or they have to retreat their primary attack active Pokemon and have a secondary attacker already lined up. And not every deck can run that consistently.
Yeah,
without hurting themselves into a degree, because if they retreat, well, that's energy off the board. Great.
Or you're making them, or you're making them use a Leaf or X Speed. So you're making them use resources on top of that as well.
Exactly. And all for what? One in the Weezing has 100 HP, by the way. So if they can't KO this Weezing, it's just going to recycle. I'm going to put that pressure. I'm fine with doing chunks of 50 to 60 per turn.
Yeah.
And I don't always have to have the poison. The poison is just a backup mechanic. Really, the poison's the main mechanic. That smokescreen is a really good backup. And if that Weezing with smokescreen is getting low, I Koga it out, and then I can recycle that again. So it's a lot of frustration pieces, and it makes your opponent think of their outs, because I know what I'm doing. I have to make them play around my strategy, which is, to me, always a good deck. And it doesn't control, it doesn't disrupt. It disrupts, but it isn't one of those situations where your opponent can't play the game. Your opponent just has to kind of be smart about how they play their style.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't auto-win against any deck. No. But it has really good matchups against every deck.
Yeah, and it makes them think and helps them with resource management. Because I remember playing the game where I thought I was completely out of it, and it turns out they used too much resources in the beginning. Because remember, 20-card deck, they used their XP in the beginning, they weren't playing Sabrina, and I was able just to keep poisoning over and over again, even though I'm not really attacking, but they had no way to counteract me because I was at least putting damage on the board, and they weren't doing that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very... You better be good with resource management if you come against the Scolipede deck for sure.
Now, the one thing we didn't mention is that there's no such thing as a deck out win con in Pocket.
Yeah.
That was something I was playing a Venusaur deck, and I'm like, oh, my opponent's out of cards, I win. I was setting up just to survive one last turn, and then the game kept on going. I'm like, oh, win con is not deck out. No, two ways to win this game is get your 3 prize points, or knock out all your opponent's Pokemon before they have nothing left to play. There's only 2 win cons in this game. Yeah, which is very different than TCG.
Yeah, so there's no such thing as a stall deck in this game, which they don't make any cards like that anyway. So with this deck, what are some tech options that you can run instead of playing this list? I know I mentioned there's a Slandit that runs off the poison mechanic. I think Sabrina could be a decent card in this list too. Mm-hmm. With
there's lists that definitely play Sabrina instead of potions. I play the potions because I want to be a little extra tanky. Really, the potions help me get out of coin flip ranges for Celebi. Because if I can potion heal 20, it turns a 40 HP to a 60, which means you have to flip an extra heads. So that's part of my general strategy. But yeah, Sabrina, the help of Gusting. Tauros from Mythical Island has the attack for 3 colors energy, 40 plus, and if the opponent's active Pokemon is an EX, it does 80 more. So that's a card I've seen teched into that list in general. You talked about the Salandit. I've seen people put a Mew EX into this deck because it does the attack for colors energy, so you just copy your opponent's attack for 3 colors energy. Those are the most common techs right there in that archetype.
So yeah, we'll have this list in the show notes if you want to copy it and play it for yourself. If you know of any off-the-wall or budget-friendly or rogue list for Pocket, hit us up. We can try it out. Maybe in a couple months we can revisit Pocket as the new set will come out. I'm sure there'll be a change in the meta, and we can have this conversation all over again. But yeah, just Pocket, it is the game of the future. Obviously, it's not a replacement for Live. It's just another version of playing Pokemon that the community can enjoy. I guess one question for you before we head out. Do you think in the next year or two, we will see the Pocket on the competitive circuit? So when we go to regionals, there'll be 4 games instead of 3?
I don't think so. They don't really put much into these other games. I think Go is the exception to the rule, but it took them years in order to allow Go to be part of that national circuit and the World Championship circuit. Because you have to keep in mind, we have Unite, They never really gave Pokken much attention. They don't give Pokemon Masters EX any attention. So I think this is just going to be a way for them to glorifyly kind of print money. But if it does ever become a world championship game, I think it's going to replace something. I don't think they're ever going to add a 4. I think they're happy with the 3.5. Because you have to remember, Unite kind of gets a world championship, but they're very different.
Yeah, you only
So
see those at
they're a 3.5.
ICs. Yeah, you only see those at ICs in the worlds because I know their their path to or in their invite is completely different than the other 3 games, and even then, I still don't understand how Go gets their invite. I need to talk to someone about that and is like, hey, educate me because I know the basics of PvP.
Yeah, Go is very similar to BGC in terms of there's local events that get held, there's regional, international events that get held, and we could go over the qualification for that another day. I've looked into that as well. But it took Go almost 5 years before we got a world championship.
That's true, yeah.
So I don't think this is going to be something that's going to replace anything anytime soon. If this game does grow and develop over the years, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be replacing anything. At least not among the big 3 right now.
Okay. I know there was some talks about it, so wasn't sure what your opinion was on it. But with that being said, play this game. We both really enjoy playing Pocket. I'm more in the collecting side of it. I don't really do the PvP, but I may take the Scolipede deck out some more and play around with it. I may build a Celebi deck since I did pull an immersive Celebi, so that will be something I may try out with.
And
But yeah.
speaking of pulling good cards, there are God packs in this, by the way, for the collectors.
Oh yeah.
And my wife pulled a God pack the other day, and they do exist and they're real. Now, not all God packs are created the same, but hers was a really good one. She got a gold, an immersive, and 3 full arts.
And they were all good Pokemon too.
Yes, they are all competitively viable Pokemon. She doesn't do the competitive; she does all the collection stuff. But to her, the competition piece is pulling good cards. Like I get a screenshot every single time she pulls the EX or better.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of fun component of ripping packs and all that kind of stuff as well.
So yeah, Pokemon Pocket. If you're a collector or you play competitive, this is the game for you. Like I said, let us know of any fun decks you want us to try out, and we can talk about it in the future episode. But with that, Devin, is there any final words you have for the listeners this week?
No, I'm loving Pocket. I do competitive because there's events, and I just want to get the completion rewards for those events. But it's one of those. The best way someone described Pocket to me the other day was there is no meta. Just play what you want to play and just make sure it just work. Because you just can't put 20 cards together. They do have to have some form of cohesion to it. But if you do that and they work together, you're going to have a good time playing.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, thank you for listening this week. We'll see you next week on another episode, and have fun playing those sneaky decks, y'all.
Have a good New Year's, guys.